Okay, so this is a really cool worksheet. So what you're going to find on this is that we're going to be able to solve quadratic equations using this formula in a bunch of different ways. Okay, so the first way that we can do this is actually by graphing, if I was to graph this. So you're going to learn how to graph this quadratic in Unit 6, but right now what we're going to do is we're just going to plug this into our calculator. So from my calculator, if I go into y equals, and if I put in my equation, so x squared plus 6x plus 5, and I graph this, this is what I see in a standard window. So I see that I cross the x-axis right here at 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and at 5, negative 5. And I see that I have this vertex that's down here, and my graph is going to look like this. Now, if you remember when we were back in Unit 3, when we solve a quadratic by graphing, what we're looking for is we are looking for the zeros. So on this graph, we can see the zeros pretty easy. We know how to find the zeros on the graph. That's when we do second trace, and we go in here and we find the zeros, and we go and we do our left bound and our right bound, and it tells us that our zero happens here at -1. And we saw that on the graph. So one way that we can solve this is just by graphing and finding the zeros. And what we see is there are zeros here happen at x equals -1 and x equals -5. These are my two zeros. Okay, now I know I can solve this by factoring. So if I took this equation, x squared plus 6x plus 5 equals 0, and I want to graph this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to factor this, is I would have x plus 5 and x plus 1 equals 0. And I know this because x times x is x squared. 1 times 5 is positive 5. If I do my outsides, I have 1x. My insides, I have 5x. Added gives me 6x, so I'm good. So then to solve, we set each one of our zeros equal to 0, and we have x equals -5. Remember, it's the opposite sign, and x equals -1. Well, guess what? It's the same thing that we had up here. Okay, the next method for solving would be our square root function. So we have x squared plus 6x plus 5 equals 0. Now, for me to use the square root method, I have to have an x squared alone on the left. So I'm going to isolate this x squared. So here's what happens. I have x squared plus 6x equals -5. This is not alone. So what happens is I can't solve by square roots. And this happens because, I'm just going to have, because there is a b term. Remember, b is the middle term. So this is ax squared plus bx plus c. So there's a b term, so I cannot solve that one by square roots. All right, so now let's go in here and do completing the square. So I'm going to just write down my equation again. So we know when we complete the square, step 1 is to move that 5 over. The next step is to take half of the middle term. So this gives me x plus 3 squared equals -5 plus 9. Right? So the 3's on this side, the 9's on this side. Okay, so when I simplify it, this is what I get. So now I take the square root of both sides, and I have x plus 3. Square root of 4 is 2, so I'm just going to go straight to say plus or minus 2. So -3 plus or minus 2. Now I can do the math on this, right? So negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. And negative 3 minus 2, so negative 3 minus 2 is going more negative, is negative 5. So again, we ended up with the same answers that we did with factoring and graphing. Okay, last step here. So all I did was rewrite my equation. We're going to solve this one with the quadratic formula. So A equals 1, B equals 6, and C equals 5. All right, so here's what I have. X equals negative B, so negative 6, plus or minus the square root of B squared, minus 4AC, all over 2A. So when I simplify this in here, I would have 36 minus 20, because I have negative 4 times 5, which is minus 20. So this is 16. So the square root of 16 is 4. So negative 6 plus or minus 4 all over 2. So I'm actually going to write this out this time, and I'm going to say x equals negative 6 minus 4 divided by 2. So this is negative 10, which is negative 5, which is good. That's one of my answers. And then the other one is going to be negative 6 plus 4 over 2. And that's going to give me negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1, which is my other answer. So I know that on this one, I got the same two answers. So that is what is fabulous about all of these different methods. Obviously, factoring is the most simple. You always want to try that first. Square roots is great if you've got everything that you need. In this case, I have too much. I have this 6x. Completing the square, it works. It's a method that works. It's a little more complicated. And quadratic factor will always work. It's just the most complicated. Okay? All right, this next worksheet, I am just going to post the solutions for this on Schoology and not work this out. This is practice. So practice by factoring, square roots, completing the square, quadratic formula, and then you choose a method. Okay, so go ahead and work this. I'll work it too, and then I'll post the answers.